Title: The Hollow Rope. The rain lashed furiously against the windows of the Hangman's Inn, a decrepit building that seemed to groan under the weight of years and secrets. The wind howled like a tormented soul, seeping through the cracks in the doors and the crevices in the stone walls. Inside, the fire crackled weakly in the hearth, casting dancing shadows that played with the grotesque silhouettes carved into the dark wood. I, a simple traveler named Elias, sought refuge from the storm. I had heard stories about this place, tales of apparitions and ghostly whispers, but exhaustion and cold had convinced me to ignore the warnings. I needed a roof and a warm bed, even if it was in the very mouth of hell. The innkeeper, a corpulent man with a pale face and sunken eyes, greeted me with a forced smile. His name was Silas, and his presence, far from reassuring me, intensified the feeling of unease that had gripped me since I had set foot in the inn. He assigned me room number 7, on the second floor, right at the end of the hallway. "It's the quietest," Silas said in a hoarse voice that seemed to come from the depths of a tomb. The room was small and austere, with a creaking wooden bed, a wobbly table, and a dusty wardrobe. The smell of dampness and confinement was pervasive, mixed with a sweetish, nauseating aroma that I couldn't identify. Despite the fire in the main hall's hearth, the room was freezing. I tried to ignore the feeling of oppression that gripped my chest and prepared to have dinner. The food, a stew of tough meat and tasteless vegetables, only increased my discomfort. Every bite seemed to get stuck in my throat, as if an invisible hand was strangling me. After dinner, I decided to retire to my room. The hallway was even darker than before, lit only by the dim light of an oil lamp that flickered erratically. As I walked, I heard faint whispers that seemed to come from the walls. Indistinguishable voices that uttered incomprehensible words. Upon reaching room number 7, I felt a chill run down my spine. The door was ajar, even though I remembered closing it when I left. I hesitated for a moment, but finally decided to enter. Inside, the temperature had dropped drastically. The air was dense and heavy, as if charged with a dark and malignant energy. The bed creaked as I sat down, and the shadows on the walls seemed to come to life, twisting and lengthening like spectral claws. Suddenly, a guttural groan echoed in the room. A heartbreaking sound that seemed to come from the depths of hell. I jumped out of bed and searched for the source of the noise, but found nothing. The groan was repeated, this time closer, more intense. I began to panic. Cold sweat soaked my forehead, and my heart beat hard in my chest. I knew I wasn't alone in that room. I knew that something, or someone, was watching me from the darkness. Then I saw it. In the darkest corner of the room, a spectral figure slowly materialized. It was the silhouette of a man, dressed in tattered clothes and with a rope around his neck. His eyes, sunken and empty, stared at me with an expression of infinite suffering. I tried to scream, but the voice got stuck in my throat. I was paralyzed by terror, unable to move or look away from that macabre apparition. The specter floated toward me, getting closer and closer. I could feel his icy breath on my face, the stench of death and decomposition emanating from his incorporeal body. "Death is the way," the apparition whispered in a cavernous voice that echoed in my head. "Death is the only escape." The rope around his neck began to tighten, as if he was about to hang himself again. The image was horrifying, indescribable. I closed my eyes tightly, expecting the worst. But the pain never came. I opened my eyes slowly, fearing what I might find. The specter had disappeared. The room was silent, although I could feel his presence lurking in the shadows. I spent the rest of the night awake, sitting on the bed, trembling with fear. Every creak of the wood, every whisper of the wind, made me jump in fright. I couldn't sleep for a single moment. At dawn, I left the room in a hurry. I ran down the stairs and went to the main hall, where I found Silas, the innkeeper, having breakfast peacefully. "Did you rest well, Mr. Elias?" he asked me with a disturbing smile. "No," I replied in a trembling voice. "I've seen a ghost. A hanged man." Silas burst into a loud laugh. "Oh, don't worry about that, Mr. Elias. He's just one of the inn's former guests. They say he died here many years ago. He hanged himself in room number 7. And why didn't you tell me?" I exclaimed indignantly. Silas shrugged. "I didn't think you'd care. Most guests find it entertaining." I left the inn without saying another word. I needed to get away from that cursed place as soon as possible. But the image of the specter with the rope around his neck haunted me for days, tormenting my dreams and robbing me of peace. I never returned to the Hangman's Inn. But I know that the hanged man's spirit is still there, waiting for the next victim who dares to cross his threshold. And I know that, somewhere inside me, a part of me will never escape the hollow rope. Years later, I read an article about the Hangman's Inn. It said it had been closed down after a series of strange deaths. Silas, the innkeeper, had disappeared without a trace. Some said he had fled with the guests' money. Others, that he had been the last victim of the ghost of room number 7. But I know the truth. Silas did not flee or was murdered. He was part of the inn, part of the curse. He was the guardian of the souls in pain, the one who lured unsuspecting travelers into the deadly trap. And now, probably, he is still there, waiting in the dark, with a macabre smile on his face and a rope ready for another neck. Because in the Hangman's Inn, death is not the end. It's just the way.